Hello, my lovelies. I'm Ginny O, the author with no last name. And today I want to talk about checking your publishers. Now, I've had this kind of come up for two different times for totally two different reasons. And I wanted to make a video about it just in case, other people are having a hard time with they're getting books that are marketed one way, but when they read them, there's something else, or there's editing problems or something in the books. So, you know, I want to talk about you need to check who your publisher is. So, one is about traditional publishing, and another is about independent publishing, particularly things that are going viral on TikTok. Um, so I've had this come up with me, especially around this new genre called romantasy, and uh, reading somebody was reading a book. It had been advertised to them as a fantasy adventure. I'm not going to tell you which book it was, but I'm sure you can go run down the list and choose one. It had been recommended as a fantasy adventure, but as they were continuing to read it, it had content in it that was actually more romance in nature rather than the fantasy adventure they'd been advertised. So, as you do, I decided, to look into the publisher behind the book. So what I would do is I would say this is actually a good one. This one here. This is Mercedes Lackey, the Fairy Godmother, and it's put out through Luna Press. Okay, so this is a good one to think about. So I went to the copyright page of the book. Just it's a few pages in, and so Luna Press. I don't know if it says it in here, but yes, this edition is published by arrangement with Harlequin Books S.A., which is it's all the way down at the bottom. And and then it will tell you which the registered trade and the trademarks are belong to Harlequin and under license and blah blah blah. LunaBooks.com. So this is actually a very good example. This is not the example I was looking at, when I was helping the other person. But Mercedes Lackey usually publishes through DAW. Okay, she usually publishes through DAW Fantasy. This is one of her Edwardian type of fairy tale retellings. But for her 500 Kingdoms books, she had a contract through Luna Press, a division of Harlequin. And Harlequin, as we all know, is a romance publisher. So that this book, even though it's as long as her usual books, and is twice as long as your typical normal Harlequin book, is actually a fantasy romance, or what they might call a romantasy today, even though this was published back in 2004. So this was Harlequin 20 years ago dabbling with making a fantasy romance. And so if I had come into this book having read a whole bunch of, Mercedes Lackey Daw type of fantasy stuff, which includes her Valdemar series, and I've gotten this book and didn't know it was by Luna Publishing, a division of Harlequin, I would have been very, very confused at the very sudden, why do we have almost sex scenes in this book? This is not like Lackey at all. This is not her usual fare. And but because I knew it was a division of Harlequin, I knew that it might be a little bit more racy than the normal, her usual books are, or her Valdemar books, which really don't touch on sex and sexuality much at all. You know, yes, you usually get some sort of romance subplot, but the romance is not usually the main plot like it is with the fairy godmother here. So, you know, why can't they be together now is more the main question of this book than it is of this book. Though there is a romance subplot. So I, you know, went and I looked up the publisher and I looked up what the publisher's goals and aims were, and I said, and I told this person, the problem is not that the book, you know, yes, it's not the book that you wanted. It's the problem is their marketing is bad. The marketing of the book, what should have been more heavily focused on the romance than the fantasy part of it, because this is actually a romance imprint of a bigger publisher. And this romance imprint wants to do more pulp style publishing, on trend style publishing, where they put out, you know, books by an author every 6 months, kind of like Harlequin does. And to capitalize on trends in TikTok, basically. But this whole TikTok marketing viral thing is kind of dropping some of these walls that we've had between indie books and traditionally published books. So the second time this came up to me, I noticed this was, you know, somebody was doing a review of yet another romantasy book, and there was a lot of stuff in the book that for a traditional publisher just wouldn't have happened. And people were getting really upset, like, why are these weird words here? Why are there these spelling mistakes? Why are there these grammar errors? Why has this not been edited properly, type of thing? Why hasn't it even been proofread? And, you know, you're paying a lot for these books, especially if you're buying a traditionally published book. Surely there should have been an editing process. So I went to Amazon, as you do. I don't own that book. I didn't own the other one too. And I went to the page for the book, and I scrolled down and I looked at the publisher. And the first red flag for me, it was a limited liability company, an LLC. But I grabbed the name of the publisher and I put it into Google and I Googled it and got the slowest website ever. That took me a couple minutes to get to the About page. I mean, guys, you gotta remember that your websites need to be formulated like it's 1995 and you're on dial-up. The graphics had to be a couple gigabytes at least. I don't know. It was insane how slow this was loading in. So, I looked it up and I was looking at it and I realized that this book, even though it was being presented on a booktuber's, you know, thing, that was not actually traditionally published. Like, you know, it was being, you know, there are books that do come up on booktubers that, you know, have become viral on TikTok but aren't actually traditionally published, but they're getting these reviews because they've had so many people reading them and recommending them on spicy TikTok or whatever it is, you know, like spicy book talk, or, you know, just on normal book talk, you know. So these books are selling a lot of copies and are getting a lot of rave reviews over on Book Talk, and then, you know, the snarky reviews over on YouTube of why is this good. And but they're not being advertised as independently published. So I was looking at this website and I realized that it was basically, there's this thing that some indie authors seem to feel is necessary. Okay, they feel that to be an appropriate independent publishing business, they need to form a limited liability company, an LLC, in order to protect their assets. Now, I was telling this story to my dad, who was the treasurer of an S corporation, and he looked at me and he goes, "What are they? What type of felony do they think they're going to be committing?" Paraphrase type of thing. That that they think they need a limited liability company to protect their house and their cars and their whatever. Like, and I'm like, yeah, it's just this thing that goes around in the indie publishing community. But she had decided, as an indie author, that she was going to invite other people to join her LLC and form kind of like this tiny publishing house or whatever. There was only like 2 people who were employees of the publishing house, and one of them was her as the CEO, and the other was an acquisitions editor. That means you could submit your work to this LLC, and if it fits their kind of brand of the LLC, Tiny Vanity Publishing House here, they would consent to let you use their name as, put you under their limited liability company, and you can put that on your copyright page. This person would be looking through all the submissions and choosing which ones get to use their LLC name and which ones don't, and get access to the PR company and the social media management company that they are affiliated with below. Okay. This means you got this little teeny tiny LLC. There's no cover artist. There was no development editor, and there was no content or line editor with the company. So I was looking at it going, this is a little weird. So I went back to the Amazon page and went back and opened it up. I had to go into the look inside to look at the copyright page again, as you do, to see what was going on with the copyright page. And many independent published authors, including myself, on our copyright pages, we will list who our editors are and who our cover artists are. Now, I am part of a 2-woman show, so I have Rebecca M. Horner of In the Corner Editing as my editor. She's got a master's degree in professional writing and a bachelor's degree in creative writing, and she gets where I'm going. She gets my writing style, she gets where I'm going, and she said, and I know that if I don't have a plot or whatever, even if my plots aren't always structured, in the mountain or the 3-act structure, if I didn't have a plot, any plot whatsoever, she'll kick me up the butt and go, "Jenny, you need to find a conflict." Yes, Becca. Yes, Becca. So she trusts me to talk things out and through with her, and I trust her to tell me, here, work on this to improve your grammar, would you? And so, kind of a 2-woman show. I do the cover art for my stuff, and I just recently redid the covers for her stuff, and for if she has any upcoming other series, I'm planning to do the cover artist for her. So she is a content line editor, and she, lets me. She's my George. She's my George. She's like my rubber duck. Or my little stuffed husky here. She lets me talk my problems out to her. I write it in my head, then I tell it to Becca, then I go write some synopsis notes, and then I start writing the story. It's a very long, involved process. and she, but she also helps me with my grammar and my spelling. And between both of us, I try editing, going through using grammar check and spell check, and then going through when I'm really tired and grammar checking and spell checking and making sure my epitaphs are prime. But we still miss things. I mean, there's only 2 of us. We could probably benefit from a 3rd person, but there is only 2 of us. So, it's not like we have this massive team behind us to catch everything. So I was looking at the copyright page, and on the copyright page, she had listed a editor, a proofreader, and the cover artist. So the cover artist ended up being another indie author who also does covers, and the cover was fairly decent, so go them. They write thrillers. I don't read thrillers. Gets my anxiety doing this, and I just don't like it. And so, but that's one thing indie authors do. They'll often, if they find that they're decent at doing covers, they will often create this as a service for other people. But he wasn't part of the LLC. Then I looked up her editor. Her editor was not an editor I would choose. How about that? and so this editor also was not affiliated with the LLC. And then I checked the proofreader. And the proofreader came from Readsy, which is an author service website where you can sign up for Readsy, pay a subscription, and then there'll be listings of editors and proofreaders that you can pay them to edit or proofread your work. It's kind of like an author scam, in my opinion, but some authors like it. So, because the cover art was fairly decent, and because this had been, you know, promoted on what is an established review person's, personal website and stuff like that, or personal YouTube channel, or their TikTok or whatever, it's understandable if you don't go and do the 5 to 10 minutes of in-depth research and start noticing all these red flags of, it's a limited liability corporation, and, going and looking it up and seeing who's in charge, and, what they've published and what's going on. You would reasonably assume that some of these indie books are actually traditionally published, or you might reasonably assume that, this is because it's being marketed this way to you by the TikTok reviewer or the librarian or the whatever. Remember, your librarian does not have time to read every single book in the library. So they might not know. They might just have something, a blurb off of whatever site, or a recommendation from whatever person who was asking for the book to be on the shelves to know what the book is about. They might not know it's actually a romance rather than a fantasy. They might not know it's one of these romantasy books. Which at this point, we're getting so many of them that maybe they need their own little section in your library. Here, for people who like this sort of thing. So if you don't take that time to, double check things, you might end up with something that's not your cup of tea. Now, my cup of cocoa is, I'll in general try anything at least once. Except zombies and time travel. Zombies because it's just that's not my thing. And time travel because I have very, very, very rarely seen an author manage to accomplish time travel well. So if you're looking at, my library hauls and books I've reviewed in the past, and you're like, wow, Ginny, I can't tell what your reading taste is at all, or you're looking at the back of my shelves going, what do Star Wars, Brian Jakes, Mercedes Lackey, and Tolkien have in common? And I'll just tell you that I've read a lot, and sometimes I read these books, or I have memories of these books, and I'm like, does this book even exist? And I'll explain them to people, and people will be like, that sounds familiar, but I can't remember what it is either. And if it isn't real, maybe you should write it. Like, so it's just one of those things that sometimes I've forgotten more books than I remember that I've read. Like, I was like looking at books to put on my TBR list and going, The Grace of Kings, The Grace of Kings. I read The Grace of Kings. I know I've got Justice of Kings out on my thing. Have I read it? And I had to go back to my library, history and go, oh yeah, I took that out. And I didn't finish it because it was making me roll my eyes. So, okay, not my thing, and I took it back. But so, just take those 5 minutes sometimes if you're, I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to question, a book that way at times. You want the marketing to be accurate. But that's not always going to be the case because they're trying to get as many people as possible to read this book for profitability. They are going sometimes intentionally going to, especially in the romantasy section, market it wrong. Um, which is just an awful thing to do if you are more of a hardcore fantasy science fiction fan. Um, like, I got off the romantasy trend back on Vampire Academy, so I went and read through that and was like, I don't think so. Okay, so I I never made it to Cassie Clare or Moss or anything like that. Mead was more than enough for me. Um, so just be aware of that and know what to do. Like, it's a lot of me doing this was because when I started this channel, I wanted to review indie science fiction and fantasy books, and I still have lots of them on my Kindle to like browse through. And it's just like, I don't have time for all of this, especially when I'm reading when I'm sick most of the time anymore, and I really want, I need to be laying down, and I don't have a physical Kindle. I'm like to sit up and read on my computer just makes me more sick. So like having the physical books of published traditionally published is a lot easier on me. But because I was looking for indie books, I got used to looking for the tricks, okay? The limited liability companies, who's doing the proofreading and the editing, checking the copyright page, having lower expectations. Like, I really do have, I really do lower the bar for an indie book because I know that this is probably somebody's passion project, and I don't want to like punch down and or punch across, as the word may be, even though I realize that this is something that is not helpful to the indie authors, for readers of indie author books. But I got used to looking for these kind of little tricks of what's going on in the indie community, among indie authors. What type of things are they promoting to each other on how to be successful, to know to look for, look for the LLC, look who's doing the editing, look for a publisher, type of things like that. Look at how often they're publishing too, like that side of thing. So just because things are getting so crazy out there, take 5 minutes and check your publisher. I mean, sure, you could probably like read the first chapter in the same amount of time and decide whether or not the book is for you, but also do check the publisher. Sometimes just knowing that, Luna's a division of Harlequin, you're gonna know that might be a little bit more tropey nonsense than normal from her. Like, look, these books were pretty tropey nonsense, but these ones take it up another notch, okay? and um and that's okay. That's okay. They're on my shelves. They're still on my shelves. I haven't gotten rid of them in 20 years. Come on. There has to be something to it. So just understand that, imprints have things that they are publishing on for specific reasons. And if you can start looking at imprints and being like, oh, so I like this book by Mercedes Lackey, then maybe I'll like also other books from Luna Publishing, like the ones in the back here are Rachel Lee, some other authors, and I can't. Wow, that is so terrible. Other authors from Luna Publishing too, or that are doing this type of thing. I think the other one I got was Poison Study, was the other one from Luna Publishing that I was enjoying until she kept taking the character's agency away, and I was just like, are we done doing this? No, I guess not. Okay. Anyway, so take 5 minutes, check the publisher, make sure it's an imprint you want to read, or like other books you want to read. If you and if it's a new imprint, like sometimes these are, take that 5 minutes to check what the imprint does, what they're planning to publish. Because usually it will be out there. There will be some sort of press release or on their website about us, whatever, what they're trying to do, okay? What they're trying to accomplish. Take care of yourselves, my lovelies. Bless, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.